I feel like at some point just wanting that character for the sake of just feeling like it's important or that it actually creates a sense of urgency or something, I don't think it's that necessary. Like, those deaths wouldn't really have changed anything apart from like, holy shit, this happened, oh my god. Subscribe, please. Alright, so there is a video from LegionzGaming that said Star Rail story still doesn't compete with Honkai Impact 3rd. And I'm really curious about that. I think HSR story is pretty good. I think it's a little bit overhyped in general, I would say. I think it's good, but like, yeah, sometimes people are going a bit crazy for stuff that's like, yeah, pretty fun. Like, Pinakoni was okay. It was not the best story ever told. Now, when we talk about Honkai Impact 3rd, I think as someone who's played the entire story, like, the last, I don't know, 6 months, I guess. Now I'm fully caught up with the story. Essentially, I caught up with the story in a single month to get ready for part 2. And then I've been caught up with the story. I've been playing it as it comes out since part 2 has been out there, right? So I kind of had a condensed experience of Honkai Impact 3rd. So I feel like it's still relatively fresh in my memories. And I will say, I think a lot of the story, there was some good, there was some bad. But I will say it definitely has some very high highs. But I'm very curious as to his take on the topic here. And yeah, let's have a look at these.
Now, you guys remember the video that I did about a year ago at this point where I said, I think the title of the video is Star Rail will never surpass Honkai Impact 3rd. And the premise of that video, a little bit clickbaity, but
yeah,
the premise of that video was that storytelling of Star Rail would never surpass the storytelling of Honkai Impact 3rd.
I don't know about that. That's like a wild claim to make. Like, and he said he did that like a year ago. So that's like 2 patch into the game. Like that was like 1.x something, right? That's like being like, oh, you read the first tome of like Harry Potter. Well, never mind. Let's just say you read the first tome of, I don't know, like Jujutsu Kaisen, and you say, oh, this is never gonna be as good as One Piece, for example, right? And I mean, very subjective. I think One Piece is fantastic. I love Jujutsu Kaisen as well. But that's like, you can't really make a decision this early on, right? I mean, I don't know. To be fair, I haven't seen the first video. Maybe you bring us some very good point, but I think that's like a wild claim to make.
But that's too long of a title, so that's why it's titled that way. But I wanted to go back and touch on this because I said after Penacony, because everyone's like, oh, the writer from Honkai Impact 3rd is going to be working on this. It's going to be so much better. It's going to be peak. It's going to be just as good, if not better, than Honkai Impact 3rd, and it's going to be amazing.
Yeah,
so I said, okay,
I don't know about that.
We'll revisit this, and we'll see if I still feel the same way.
Okay.
A year down the line after Penacony is out and it's finished. Now we are on patch 2.4. I just did the story for patch 2.4.
Okay.
I'll go over it briefly. The first half, mid. The second half, where we're actually in a jail, very good. I'm very excited for the next patch and seeing more of Fei Xiao and the prison and everything. I'm very excited.
So he said the first half mid, the second half we're in the jail. So he's saying that essentially Pinakoni was pretty mid, and he's now liking what's going on with the Boris scene, essentially, right? Is that what he said?
The next patch and seeing more of Fei Xiao. Second half, where we're actually in a jail. Brief patch 2.4. I just did the story for patch 2.4. I'll go over it briefly.
Okay, never mind. He's not saying that Pinakoni was mid. He's saying that the first half of 2.4 was mid and the second half was good. I can agree with that. I think 2.4, the first half of it, you just arrive on the Janzhou Luofu. You're just talking to people. You're talking to, like, you're kind of catching up with Jing Yuan. We're meeting Fei Xiao. We're meeting Yunli and her master. We're talking with Yangqing. Yeah, nothing's really happening. The only moment which something starts happening is when you enter the prison and everything goes to shit, right? So yeah, definitely.
First half, mid. The second half, where we're actually in a jail, very good. I'm very excited for the next patch and seeing more of Fei Xiao and the prison and everything. I'm very excited for that part. But I wanted to touch on, is Star Rail just as good as Honkai Impact's third storytelling, and can we expect in the future even more better storytelling than what we have now? At this point, I'm going to say once again, no, we are not. Main point being, as I said in the previous video, Honkai Impact 3rd has Kiana, a main character where the story is mainly focused around her, voice acted, all the characters around her that support her, the supporting cast for her, May, Bronya, Sela, all of those characters are all a very integral and important part of the story, and it follows them throughout the entire story. And you see these characters coming back and forth into the story and
let me see. I think
main. As I said in the previous video, Honkai Impact 3rd has Kiana, a main character where the story is mainly focused.
I actually think that Kiana is not the most interesting character from the cast of Honkai Impact 3rd. I think May is much more interesting.
Around her.
Yeah.
Voice acted. All the characters around her that support her, the supporting cast.
I will say
May,
that,
Bronya.
like, yes, it's voice acted, but it's only voice acted in Japanese. Personally, I'm fine with it because I only play my games in Japanese, but a lot of people don't want to even care about a game that's not voice acting in English. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Especially, like, big streamers, they want to just have the game in English, so, you know, like, everyone can just listen to the game, yap, and I think it's a good part of it.
Sela, all of those characters are all a very integral and important part of the story, and it follows them throughout the entire story.
Yeah, I agree.
And you see these characters coming back.
The thing is that, like, Honkai Impact 3rd has a much smaller cast of characters, and the story is always centered around them, right? Meanwhile, a game like Genshin or Star Rail, the cast of characters is fucking massive. Because every time you go to a new place, you meet so many new people, and the full main cast is not always present, right? When you go to the Shanzhou, you only have Dan Heng and March with you, right? If I remember correctly. When you go to Belobog, Himeko and Welt are not with you. They keep rotating, and because there's this idea of like the Himeko and Welt are like the elders in a sense. They're like the tutors. So it feels like if I had to say who are the main character, I guess it would be the MC, obviously, and then it's March 7th and Dan Heng, probably. But even sometimes Dan Heng doesn't even come with you, right? So I guess right now the two main characters would be the MC and March 7th. But the thing is that when you come to a new place, you meet the main character of said new place, and they don't come with you on the journey, right? So it does feel like you traverse from self-contained world to self-contained world, and it doesn't necessarily have a huge impact on the main cast directly. So I do agree that it potentially doesn't have as much of a satisfying character arcs or like overarching plot around the main characters yet. And Honkai Impact 3rd did have that from the get-go. Sometimes it was not very well made. I think the beginning chapters, like the first chapters, were pretty bad, pretty all over the place. They threw a lot of stuff at you without really explaining any of them, and then you have to go look into like all the medias like manga and stuff to actually understand what the heck is going on, which is, I think, kind of weak. But yeah, I can agree with that point. Now, that said, it doesn't mean that the self-contained stories of Belobog, or the Shenzhou, of the space stations, or of Penacony are bad. There's some very good characters there, and there is still some character development that you'll learn about, right? So, yeah, I kind of can understand the point he's making there.
And forth into the story and being main prevalent parts of the story.
Absolutely.
Whereas in Star Rail, we have the MC, which kind of talked a lot in this patch, right? But not really, doesn't really talk all the time, right? So he's not like an MC where like everything's focused on him and he's constantly talking.
Absolutely. The thing with Honkai Impact 3rd is that you follow characters that already have a... You're not the character. You're not Kiana, right? You're not Kiana, you're not May, you're just following the stories along, right? the Traveler and the MC in the HSR, they both have some amount of personality, right? They do. Like, some traits are just from them, like the trash thing, stuff like that. They do have their own personalities, but there are still some they're blank enough that anyone can relate with them. And you are still them. You are the Traveler. You are the Trailblazer, right? Meanwhile, you're not Kiana. And I think this distinction is very real. And there are some good points to having a character that's a bit more quote-unquote bland, even if they have some amount of quirks, because then you write your own story, right? Meanwhile, in Honkai Impact 3rd, you're very much an observer.
Talking, or she's constantly talking, and we visit these planets and we see these people and these new characters. We fall in love with these new characters, and for like a patch or two, and then we never see them again.
Yep.
You know, Sela, Bronya, like, right? Maybe you see them in an event, right, down the line, or a filler patch. But as a part of the main integral story,
same problem in Genshin.
No. Maybe years down the line, at like 5.0, 6.0, when there's some crazy war against the Aeons going on, if that ever fucking happens, that we will see them again, right? Everyone's going to come together and fight against the Aeons with us or something like that, right? It's going to be like One Piece, where Luffy's gathering all these people, unbeknownst to him, that are following him. And, you know, they're going to be part of his army. Now, that's not the only reason. It's not just the MC, which is a very big part, right? It's not just the Trailblazer's MU and the Trailblazer. You know, he's not really that serious. He's very comedic at times. It has nothing to do with that. It's more the fact that there's no stakes in this game, in the story of this game. But what I mean by that is, holy shit, I would like to see somebody die. This game has still...
I disagree with that. I think just because people are not dying doesn't mean there's no stake in the game. I think... Like, I mean, it brings some amount of tension. Like, having a character die is like a holy shit kind of moment, right? But I do agree that, like, it feels a bit bad to have some amount of fake outs. Like, the entire thing with, like, Sparkle, like, it was a red herring the entire time. And then nothing happened with that. It was just like, yeah, we just, like, made a deathless death, essentially, right? And I feel like it's not bad in itself, but, like, a lot of people were, like, really, like, losing their mind about, like, is there gonna be an explosion? What's gonna happen? Is she gonna die? And, like, I was thinking that, like, for Firefly, to me, it was going to be a symbolic death. But I expected for her to come out the other way different. Like, she would be Firefly from now on. Maybe she would join the train. And I think it felt a bit like something was taken away from that. I feel like the amount of urgency was a bit gone. And I can agree with him. Now, do characters need to die for the game to have stakes, to have high stakes? I don't think so. Now, is he wrong? Is he trash talking? I don't agree whatsoever with that. And also the idea that, like, because I'm answering to you, Xander, you say the game is gonna have death. We don't know. You say that, but we don't know. None of the characters so far at any point have died, and it's the same in Genshin. So I don't know if you can just say, yeah, it's gonna happen. We don't know. I don't know why you're thinking this. If you have high hopes, that's fine, but let's be real, we can only analyze from the information we have currently, and currently, no characters have died, so I understand this point. I don't agree that the character needs to die for the game to have high stakes, but, like, if you're coming out of Honkai Impact 3rd, where, like, a lot of characters die, you're like, all characters should die in HSR too. I think that's a bit unreasonable as well.
Never gotten me to feel remotely what I felt when I fought Cocolia. That was awesome. The fight itself, the build up to the fight itself, the emotions that were going through, the cutscenes, the music, the battle, everything was so cinematic. And I still think that was better than Penacony, 100%. That the feeling from that fight and that moment in Belobog and the build up for that was way better. And Cocolia died. There was actual stakes there, right? There was death. There was a reason, right, to care about this character because the character died.
I don't think a character dying
end,
means you care about them automatically. Yeah, I think that's
realizing.
I think that's not a good point.
Wow, I fucked up. I was a piece of shit, and at least I get to protect my daughter. And instead of blowing herself up and taking everyone with her, she just blows her. She just dies, right? She just disappears. And Penacony, listen, I love Firefly, but that bitch needed.
No, I don't. I really don't agree with that.
Die. She died 3 fucking times and came back every time. What is this fucking Dragon Ball Z? Holy fucking shit. We got the goddamn Dragon Balls and wish that bald-headed bitch back again. No Himiko death, no Sunday death, no Robin death, no nothing. It was all a dream. Like, oh my god, dude. Whereas in Honkai Impact 3rd, there is constant death. And not
I don't know.
only is there
I
constant
really don't.
death, but the characters around the main character.
I really don't agree that a game, like a storytelling, needs to have character death for it to be interesting. I think it can, like, it has to have a purpose for it, right? Like, I feel like if you look at Game of Thrones, for example, like the story tells you that anyone can die, right? And that's fine, of course. But, like, not everybody wants to go that route. Not everything has to be about character dying or to be edgy or anything. And I don't think it necessarily makes the story better. It can empower the story or, like, allow a character to go through a transformation or something, to go through, you know, like, gain some new amount of motivation. I don't think this would have done it, to be honest. And regardless of, like, did the character really die? No. Did it still have a big impact on the characters themselves outside of the person that was potentially dead? Yes, and I think that's what matters. I think that's what's important. And yeah, you could be like, oh, that's kind of cheap that it didn't really kill the character. Sure, but that doesn't really change the fact that it was still interesting to see. Would it have been better if Sunday actually died, if Firefly actually died? I don't know, dude. I don't really think so. I don't really think it would have been better, to be honest. I'm really trying to think about it, like, try to be as objective as possible, because I do like Firefly, but I really don't give a fuck about Sunday. If he had died, would it have been better? I mean, I guess you could have a whole thing with Robin, and yeah, but the problem is that, like, even if Robin, like, what would she want vengeance against someone that's just not there because there's, like, no enemy? Like, the person behind Sunday is just not really there anymore. I don't know. I just don't see it, really. I don't think that would have been, like, that much better, to be honest. I just don't think... I feel like at some point, just wanting that character for the sake of just feeling like it's important or that it actually creates a sense of urgency or something, I don't think it's that necessary. Like, those deaths wouldn't really have changed anything. Apart from, like, holy shit, this happened! Oh my god! That would have just been a shock factor and nothing else, really.
Help build Kiana's character so much more than she herself does.
I mean, nobody dies on this cutscene, to be fair. I don't get the point because, like, all those characters don't die. Why are you showing this? Like, literally none of those characters are dead. I mean, you could argue that Sirin dies, but even then, it's not even like a main character, it's an antagonist. Maybe. Yeah, I don't really get it here. Fuat doesn't die. Like, you complain about people, like, faking out deaths, but, like, Fua has been shot in the head multiple times, and we thought she was dead, but no, because she's fucking immortal and 50,000 years old. So, yeah, I don't really know about that one. I don't think those are the best example. Like, if you want to talk about character death in Honkai Impact 3rd, you gotta talk about the Flame Chasers, you've gotta talk about the Elysian Realm, you've gotta talk about Himeko, you've gotta talk about the Wind Lady, I don't remember her name, you gotta talk about Kiana's mother, you gotta talk about all those things. You can't just show, like, moments of, like, Senti and Fu Hua and, like, Sirin and, yeah, Wendy, thank you. Like, I don't think this necessarily, like, makes your point any stronger or anything, to be honest. Oh, I get it. The video here is about Himiko, like, being here as, like, a kind of the dead ghost of a Jedi, giving you power. Fair. The previous era, I mentioned the Flame Chasers. Alright, for this part specifically, I can agree because we do see Himiko, I guess. Yep, there it is. Alright. But also, it's not like Himiko died chapter 1 or chapter 2 of the game, you know? So I don't know.
For example, Mei being so powerless to wanting to stop Kiana from being self-sacrificing, right? Kiana knows she's on the verge of death, but she's taking those 2 cores that she has anyway, and she's going off to fight the Honkai. And she knows that she's gonna die, but she doesn't care because she wants to protect her friends and she wants to protect Mei. And she's very stubborn in accepting help and saying, I don't want no help from nobody because I don't want anyone to die and I don't want to be the reason that someone else has died. I am going to do it all by myself. And Mei, you know, the frustrations going through Mei, the lack of power to being able to protect her friends and the ones that she cares about, the ones that she loves, and finally overcoming that and getting the strength that she needs by pretty much joining the dark side, and then having these 2 ideals and these 2 beloved characters fighting each other. Because on one side, Mei does not want Kiana to sacrifice herself. She wants to save Kiana. She will literally go to the depths of hell to save her. It doesn't matter if she dies as long as she's...
I mean, yeah, I understand what he's saying, but also in terms of how far the story is, well, I mean, I agree that something happening, I'm not saying that this is necessarily going to happen in HSR, but like in terms of escalation, we are pretty far into the story of the game here. Like, this is a long time into the game being out and being released, right? This is around the 50 to 60% into the story of part 1. So it's not like this happened right away. And while I understand that we don't know if something similar is going to happen or something so massive, so intrinsically transformative to the crew, to the main story, to the main characters of HSR is going to happen, I think you do have to let things cook a little bit. Maybe nothing's gonna happen. Maybe it's gonna be boring. Maybe it's gonna be, oh, we keep going to the Disney worlds, like in fucking, what's it called? Like Kingdom Hearts. And maybe we're never gonna have anything interesting with Elio, and we're never gonna be fighting the finality. And yeah, nothing's gonna happen. It's gonna be boring, and nobody's gonna die. Everyone's gonna be happy, and yeah, whatever, and the game's gonna fail. But also, maybe not. Maybe the threads that they're weaving is actually gonna end up somewhere. So that's why I say, like, it's a bit hard to look at fucking like 6 years of Honkai Impact 3rd and be like, this is way better, because at the 3-year mark or the 4-year mark, massive shit happened where we're only like a year and what, 3 months in for HSR. I don't know. I think it's a bit maybe slightly disingenuous to compare the two. And yeah, there were some deaths in Honkai Impact 3rd before that moment, right? But also, I mean, Wendy dying was like, it's not like it was absolutely like world shattering or anything. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not too sure.
Saves Kiana.
About this.
Is on a self-sacrifice path where it doesn't matter what happens to her. She just wants to make sure that all her friends are safe. So you got one thinking, you know, I'm one life. What's one life?
Yeah, there's a confrontation of
to protect
ideals.
the entire world, right? And then there's May saying, I will kill the entire world to save your one life, right? And then having them come at each other, and then the emotions that are flying when you're fighting and doing that scene where you're fighting, and the way that they tell the story in Honkai Impact 3rd, a lot of people think it's just visual novel storytelling. No. In this fight, you're actually controlling May and having to fight against Kiana and vice versa. And they're having dialogue throughout the story, and there's you know, little flashbacks and the music while you're fighting and everything. It is so well done for, you know, how old the game is. And Honkai Star Rail just doesn't have any of that. Star Rail does not have any stakes like that. There's not enough happening in the story for you to give a shit about any of these characters more than, oh my god, they're so cool or they're so cute. There's no like emotional detachment of like, wow, I can relate to this character, right? There's a lot of relatable attachments to IRL things in Honkai Impact 3rd.
I mean, I think he talks in a lot of absolute, and this is obviously a very subjective topic. And if he can't relate, that's fair. I think there's also the idea that, like, I mean, he's probably like in his early 30s, probably, or late 20s at the very least. So I feel like, yeah, maybe it's not adult enough for him by comparison. It's a bit more, you know, it's a bit more mainstream. It's a bit more for a larger audience, I guess. Maybe you just want something that hits a bit harder. Because, yeah, when you're 19, when you're 23, and you grow up with the characters like Mei and Kiana, it's gonna be super hard-hitting. Because you feel like you're literally growing older at the same time as they do. And then when you're 30 and you look at characters who are 20, you have different expectations, maybe. Maybe you want a story that can relate to you now, and it's just not the case anymore, right? So I'm not too sure. I feel like if you can't relate to them, well, that doesn't mean that nobody can relate to them, right? I don't know. Looking at some of the characters and their struggle, I can kind of understand them. Like if you look at, what's her name? Like Mart 7 for a lot of her issues. I think Scylla. I think like Bronya even. I think there's a lot of good stuff there. And even in the later parts, like Firefly, Robin, I think those characters, like a lot of people are going to be resonating with them, in my opinion.
That happened. A lot of psychological shit that happens in that game make you feel for these characters. And in Star Rail, that just doesn't happen.
I don't agree. I don't agree with that at all. If you talk about psychological stuff happening, there's a lot of stuff happening with Firefly. There's a lot of stuff happening with Mikhail. I don't know. I mean, maybe it doesn't hit hard enough for you because you're not attached to those characters, but it's gonna work for other people. Not gay, by the way.
I know a lot of people love Penacony, and a lot of people like to praise Penacony like it's one of the best stories.
I think Penacony is a bit overrated. I will agree with him with that.
Stories that they've ever played. Bro, no. Please. Do yourself a favor and go play an actual game with a good story. Go play The Last of Us. Go play Legend of Heroes, Trails of Cold Steel. Go play a Final Fantasy.
The Last of Us is overrated.
It's a game, Dragon Quest, right? Go play something that isn't a gacha story, and you will realize that the story of Star Rail is so fucking boring because the way they tell it. Bro, I love
I don't agree with that.
stuff with Acheron and the Honkai Impact 3rd nods, right? I loved all of that lore. I loved those
I think it's
parts,
overrated.
and
I
I
don't
liked
think
a
it's
lot of
boring.
adventuring stuff too. But that one patch where we had it was like 10 plus hours, and it was just constant yapping, bro. When you're telling a story, and the way that you're telling,
I mean, you can't complain about constant yapping. Honkai Impact 3rd is constant yapping. You showed 3 cinematics out of like 10 that exist in the game.
the story
It's not that
is
deep
just
either.
a model just sitting there with no emotion, very stiff, of just the mouth moving for fucking 10 hours. That is not good storytelling. Maybe the actual lore is decent, but the way they're telling the story is not good. And this is the problem I have with every Hoyoverse game. And I'm going to be real. I know you're probably going to say,
all Hoyoverse game, it's just because he's done a lot of comparison between HSR and Honkai Impact 3rd. But if he says Honkai Impact 3rd has the same issue, I have nothing to say about that. I do agree.
oh, Hoyo, Kuro Shill, Wuthering Waves, 1.1, and the last act of the part 1, well, 1.0.
1.1 was great.
Did not make me feel that way at all. Like, the characters in even those very, like,
I think the end of 1.0 was a bit overrated, I think. Like, so many people are cooing over, like, part 5 and 7. I'm just like, it was not that great. I'm sorry.
Moments are very...
I think it's just that by comparison to the rest that felt like so monotone and long-winded, suddenly there was a bit of action and people were like, oh, monkey brain, monkey brain, monkey brain activates. That was, it was fine, but it was not fucking, like, mind-bending or anything. Meanwhile, I will say 1.1 was great. And why? Because it had some action, sure, but there was a lot of emotion. There was a lot of, like, learning about Jinchi, learning about Chengli. You got to see, like, the backstory, and I think it was told in a nice manner with, like, you could see the different side of things and the different, like, viewpoints coming together, and I think that was beautiful. But yeah, like, I don't know.
Expressive. When we're just when we're at the parts in Wuwa where they're just talking, right? Like similar to Star Rail Genshin, they're very expressive. Their eyes move. Their fucking their hair is moving. Like everything. That like the facial expressions are all there. Everything feels way more alive, and it's keeping me like interacted. I feel like I'm a part of it. Like I'm sucked in. I'm locked in. Especially Chang Li.
I mean,
God.
we could talk about the different. I think we can talk about like which fucking engine is used on the different games and some limitation being there. And you could argue that like, yeah, maybe they need to like step up their game. Maybe they need to switch to a different engine, but that's kind of hard when you're mid-cycle of a game. And I mean, they did change their shit with ZZZ, right? But like, it's not like you can just fucking clack your finger or whatever and just switch engine when you're fucking a year and a half in. I don't think it really works that way.
1.1 spoiled the shit out of me for Gacha Story because that shit was so good. Her companion quest and 1.1 as a whole, that was amazing. And it's gonna be hard for another story to top that because that was so good to the point now where I got in Sorry and did 2.4 and I was like, ooh, going from Wuthering Waves with, you know, the Unreal Engine graphics and the expressiveness of the characters and, you know, them telling the story while you're in combat to like this, you know, is not really as good. And I know a lot of people are going to say it's because Star Rail's turn-based. Wrong.
No, I disagree with that.
Are turn-based.
A game being turn-based doesn't mean that the fucking storytelling has to be boring. It's just not how it is. Yeah, I think it has nothing to do with this. I agree with him on that point.
A lot of Persona games are turn-based. A lot of Dragon Quest games are turn-based, and I am engrossed all the time. You know why? Because in those scenes, the cutscenes where things happen, it's not just them standing still talking.
Yeah, like like the gameplay being turn-based doesn't mean that the dialogue has to be turn-based. Although I guess dialogue by itself is kind of turn-based, but like it doesn't have to be bland.
For 2 hours, and then we randomly get a cutscene that's 5 seconds long, and we're supposed to be like, "Oh my god, that cutscene was crazy! Did you see that? That just made the last 4 hours worth it." No, it didn't. No, it didn't. If anything, I'm at the point where that's it. As we only have 5 seconds. We sat here for 10 hours. We get 5 seconds of Acheron just fucking going, phew, phew, and then that's it. End of cutscene. Like, holy shit, bro. And so, like, again, going back to like characters adding on to Kiana, right? Everlasting Flames arc is another very important segment where she pretty much uses the powers of her friends, power friendship, right? But hey, it's a typical shonen trope, but it works. Right?
Yeah, I don't think the power of
And
friendship
she
is a bad
sees
thing
the
at all.
death
I
of her
know a lot of
friends.
people look at it and be like, almost antagonize the power of friendship and think it's boring. But like, I mean, I think it's a fine trope. I think it's perfectly fine. Especially because at the end of the day, those games, they're meant to like kind of like they have good values in them, and you know what, having a good support system around you is good to have. It's a good value. It's good to have people that support you around you and that love you. Wow, power friendship is that insane.
And she uses their power to overcome the pressure of domination and ends up winning the fight, but at a cost. And then they constantly doing nods to other characters that did die, like, you know, Himiko. You get that scene of Himiko smiling at her like, oh, she's overcome her, you know, her worries, and you know, she's strong now, she doesn't need her anymore, right? In that arc where you say goodbye to her, very, very touching. And they're bringing these characters back to be involved in the story, and this is what makes you care about these characters, because they're gone and the cast still thinks about these characters and cares about them, and it makes you also relate and feel like you care about these characters. That can't be done in Saro. It just can't.
I disagree with that. But again, it's like saying that you can't care about the character unless they're dead. I don't agree with that. It's like if you use One Piece, like saying, oh, I can't care about Tony Chopper because Tony Chopper is not dead. That's stupid. Or I can't care about like fucking Robin because Robin isn't dead. Well, that's not true. When Robin is fucking abducted by Cypher Pole, people fucking care about that character. They get like crazy and they're insanely like worried and into it, and their heart is like being torn to pieces about that shit. The stakes can be high, and like you could say, oh, she's gonna die, so that's why, but I mean, nothing ends up happening to her, and she's not dead anymore, and people still fucking care about it, so I don't know, I don't agree with that. And you could say, well, in One Piece, it's way more hard-hitting, because they all have sad backstories. HSR, everybody has a fucking sad backstory. So it's the same level. I mean, that said, I think the storytelling in One Piece is better. So maybe there's that. But yeah, I don't know. Again, the idea that characters have to die to me is a bit not true. Just simply not true. It could be done better, I agree, but they don't have to die. Flamesion, baby! Yeah! That said, I do agree that for Genshin and HSR, they probably have a reluctance to kill their waifu characters, because at the end of the day, now that the game is way more mainstream and there's way more eyes on it, they probably don't want to upset their community by killing off those characters, right? I think when Honkai Impact 3rd was way more niche, in a sense, they maybe felt like they had more freedom for those kind of things, because, well, I mean, if there's less people looking at you, you've got less risk of people losing their shit and being super unhappy, right? But I feel like nowadays they probably want to make sure that like people don't get upset or they don't lose like the fan base and stuff like that.
And seeing how Stariel had a chance to kill at least somebody in Penacony. Sunday
a chance to, dude.
Robin didn't die.
He just wants to kill
Firefly
people.
didn't die. Nobody in your cast died. Literally nobody died. Now I'm not saying someone needs to die for the story to be good.
That's what you've been telling the entire time. You've been saying this for 15 minutes. You've literally been saying that someone has to die.
Shit. It's been almost it's been 2 years at this point. And not a single person besides Kokolia has died. And that I feel like is just because they kill Kokolia in every game. GGZ, Honkai Impact 3rd, she dies in every fucking game. Every reality, every different dimension.
Kokolia didn't die in Honkai Impact 3rd. Did she? I'm pretty sure she's just in prison. Did she die? I'm pretty sure she didn't die. In Honkai Impact 3, she's just in prison, isn't she? No, she's currently detained. She's not dead. She's not dead. She's not dead. After the whole thing, when they opened like a big rift to the Sea of Quenta in the underwater place, and things went south, she got captured by anti-entropy, and then she was detained. She's not dead.
Like, she's dead. And
No. Well, in Himiko, yes.
So maybe Himiko will still die. But I don't know. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, but Honkai Impact 3 has been out for 7 years. They've had time to develop the story. At this time,
I agree.
where we at right now, they were already at the point where let's take out the fact that the first year of the game coming out was them just fixing the game, because the game came out awful, right? The game had a lot of bugs, didn't run well on phones, had a lot of issues. They spent a lot of time just fixing the game, not making updates, just fixing the game, not doing story updates, just fixing it. And then let's take that out. It was about 8 months to a year around there, right? For them to finally get the shit right.
I mean, that's not an excuse, but whatever.
Right, is when they got to the Himiko part. So take out that year. It took them 2 years to build up to that. I don't even think it was 2 years, like 1.5, for them to get to the point. I think it was like 2.5 or 2.6 of Himiko, it's her dying, right? Never let you go. It took about 1.5 years. We are 2 years into Star Rail, and still nothing like that's happened. Bro, shit, even in 2.4 just now. Shuye, spoiler alert.
We got 2 years.
Let's fast forward 10 seconds. You want to hear this? Shuye literally gets crushed by Hule. Fucking destroyed. And then they're like, oh yeah, her soul can just be put into another body. Like Nier Automata.
Okay, he just doesn't know the lore, but Trey, like, I'm nitpicking. But Trey is already dead. Her soul does not inhabit the robot all the time. Her soul gets summoned into the puppet every time she has to work. And then when she's done with the work, the soul goes away. And the more she does work, the more she's allowed to be in the body, in that puppet body. So it's not like her soul was in the puppet. If the puppet died, then the soul would dissipate. No, she would just go back to being a spirit in the chamber hole or whatever, the hall of chambers, whatever it's called. The reason why she ended up in a different body just meant that she didn't have to be resummoned right away or like later. It just meant that she was able to communicate with us and give us some information. You could say that's lame, but that just allowed her to essentially be a support character for the rest of the prison break, right? So even if she was not in the Psycrane, she would still be dead, but she would still have been able to be resummoned to a different puppet once it was fixed.
It's like 2B. They just upload her mind to the bunker, and then she has another body. So she's in the crane, and then she's going to go from the crane to another body for her. So, like, I was like, oh my God, Shuye died? Immediately. Oh, never mind. Never mind, she didn't die.
Okay, maybe he was surprised because he didn't know, but I mean, regardless of the Psycrane, she would not have died.
It literally took me out. I was like, oh my, I don't even fucking care about what happens anymore. There's no death. There's no stakes. There's nothing to be scared about or worried about. There's just sit there and watch them yap and have a cool cutscene for 5 seconds. That's it. And then Zenless Zone Zero, well, this isn't a Zenless Zone Zero video, but Zenless Zone Zero made me go back to Honkai Impact 3. So just letting you guys know, I am going to be posting Honkai Impact 3 content a lot.
Cool.
I know a lot of you guys unsubbed because you were sick of me not posting anymore.
I mean, that's gonna be rough, because if you want some death in the Honkai Impact 3, it's not happening either. Part 2? Yeah, buddy, about that. Yeah, you gotta be real sad when Song Shui passed away, huh? Yeah, for sure, 100%.
Or you were constantly asking me about it. I'm not going to stream it, though. I am just going to do it off stream and upload it. Because
big
every time I stream
Can't
it,
wait for Song Shui to
spoiling
die.
the fuck
For
out
real.
of me. I hated streaming that game because I would have 400, 500 people here on YouTube and another 100 on Twitch, and it would just be constant people foreshadowing and spoiling. And I don't want to be... That shit makes me mad, man. And then people come in and they just see me flipping the fuck out on chat, and they're like, wow, this guy's an asshole. But that's why. So I'm just going to record it off stream, edit it down, and post on YouTube. So you guys will have Honkai Impact 3rd content again. I'm going to try to catch up and play part 2. But yeah, Star Rail, bro, we ain't never, and ain't never ever going to be like Honkai Impact 3rd storytelling. It is not going to be having stakes like Honkai Impact 3rd. It is not going to have death or relatable moments like Honkai Impact 3rd. It's not going to have that psychological feeling. And it's just, you're not going to care about characters like you do in that game because the storytelling is just so much better. And I still love Star Rail. Don't get me wrong. I'm still going to keep playing it. Of course, I'm going to keep playing it. It's one of my favorite gacha games. But I am, I'm not going to keep hope that like, oh, the story is going to get good.
All right.
No, it's not. It's decent for what it is, but I'm going to be real, bro. I've been playing Outer Plane, and I think that shit has a better story than Star Rail does. The people die, there's stakes, is better. For Nikkei Gacha is way better storytelling than shit, even Snowbreak. Like,
I'm triggered. Snowbreak story is fucking garbage, man.
Star Rail just feels like a giant slice of life with some moments that make you feel like it might get dark, but it doesn't, you know? And sure, there are side quests that get pretty dark where they talk about, oh, this person was a mass murderer, suicide, like all that stuff. But it is never, you know, in the prevalent, like, main story. It is literally stuff you have to look for, and it's not shit that's shown to you. So I'm not getting my hopes up anymore. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that Star Rail story competes with Honkai Impact 3rd, or do you, like me, know that Honkai Impact 3rd just blows Star Rail story out the water? I'm gonna be honest here. I wish
yeah, okay,
that Honkai Impact 3rd made a little bit more money. They just did part 2, and they still only make like 3 million on mobile. Maybe there's more on PC. Maybe they make like 5 million in total, right?
All right.
But man, I feel bad because like that game deserves so much more views and money because it is actually so good, especially part 2. Part 2's combat, holy shit,
a lot of people
is
don't
way
like
better
part 2.
than ZZZ's combat, dude. You got aerial combos, you got swapping in and out to juggle. Like, it is so much
God,
better.
not the juggling.
When I
Not
saw
the
that
juggling!
ZZ didn't even have a jump button, I was like, this game's gonna be ass. I cannot play an action game in 2024 without a fucking jump button. It is ridiculous. Yeah, let me know your thoughts down below.
I don't really
Thank
care
you
about the
guys so
jump
much for
button, to be
watching. I hope
honest.
you guys enjoy this, and I'll see you all on the next video. Keep your eyes out for more Honkai Impact 3rd videos. It's coming.
This is just a cinematic. Like, this is not his content. I mean, he put in the video, but it's just cinematic with Himeko, so I'm not gonna play it. Anyway, so yeah, moral of the story: man on the internet has a subjective opinion. Maybe talks a little bit much in absolute. But I mean, who cares? I disagree with his opinion. I think characters don't need to die for the game to feel like it has stakes, or to be emotionally attached to characters. Sometimes I can just relate to a character even if they don't die. It is what it is. Anyway, interesting video nonetheless. It's nice to have hearing different opinions on stuff. There were some points I think I agree with. I think some of the storytelling in HSR is a little bit overrated and overhyped. But obviously I disagree with a lot of his takes. Good points, a few of them. Bad points, a few of them as well. Overall, yeah, interesting. It's nice to see someone who seems to like One Piece and Honkai Impact 3rd. I think Honkai Impact 3rd is a pretty good game. I don't think anyone's ever gonna be jumping on the Honkai Impact 3rd ship anytime soon. Unfortunately, the game has been out for a long time and people don't want to do that. So yeah, but it was interesting nonetheless. It's nice to have a video like this. I think more people should be talking about games and how they feel about them, about the storytelling itself, about have just give their opinion, because so many people just give the cookie cutter answer and don't really talk about those. It's just about like pulling and drama and stuff like that. It's a bit annoying. So I really appreciate that he took the time to actually give his opinion like this, and I think that was a great video overall, even if I didn't agree with everything. Anyway, good videos. Check out LegionzGaming. Good dude, and I'll see you on the next one.